Hi guys, Assalamualaikum. So welcome back to the second video of January 2025. As I have promised from the previous video, today I am making an in-depth explanation on my experience passing through Yayasan Khazanah scholarship assessment process and some tips that I've learned along the way. I understand that in a few months, if the schedule remains the same, Yayasan Khazanah is going to open another application or intake for 2035, and I hope that my experience can help you to gain some insight and confidence passing through the assessment process. First and foremost, however, I would like to note that there are actually different scholarship programs offered by Yayasan Khazanah. For example, there's Yayasan Khazanah Global, Yayasan Khazanah Watan, there's Lestari Program, Chevening, Roots. So you can check their website for more details, terms and conditions, and also compare different scholarship programs that they offer. The timeline on their website may not be up to date yet, but you can check from time to time, especially the latest update on their social media. Today, I'm going to talk specifically about my scholarship program, which is Yayasan Khazanah Global. Last year, the application opens from the 7th of March 2024 to 21st of March 2024. So if you're watching earlier this year, it means that there's around 1 month and a half left for you to prepare for the application. There are usually two different types of opening. First is for postgraduate level, which is Masters and PhD, and another one is for undergraduate level, which is for SPM leavers. It usually opens later in the year as SPM result is also released during mid-year. Now, the first part of any selection process is always your application. It's pretty straightforward. The portal will ask about your basic personal information, your working experience, your family backgrounds, the number of siblings, and they will also ask about your SPM results and your undergrad results. What I would really like to talk about is your extracurricular participation. Okay, here, you will need to list down your top participation during your undergrad studies or while working across several categories such as sports, club associations, competition, volunteering program. I can't remember all of the different categories, but on each category you can fill up to 10 different entries. And it might sound obvious, but here's the tip. There is a YouTube video where the scholarship manager explained that you should arrange your achievement from the best to the least significant. And most importantly, put a lot of effort when filling in this section because your participation will be scored. For me personally, I put my participation up until doing my final year in high school. So from Form 5 to all of my volunteer work and activities during my undergrad. And I tried to maximize as best as I could while filling the form. And second thing is your resume or your CV. Make sure your CV represents your contribution properly rather than just bullet points stating the position that you have at what year and how long do you hold that position. You should highlight in your resume what did you actually do or what did you contribute in the position that you have and what have you achieved together with your team. So not to forget, if there is space, also include your volunteer works and participation. And lastly, essay. I would say that essays are the most important part of your application process. For postgraduate students, there will be 2 essays with 1,000 words each that you have to complete. And why are essays so important? Because whatever that you write, your careers, your goals, your background stories, your aspiration on the long term will be carried through to the 4th and 5th stage interview. So it is very important for you to really think about it and be consistent in your passion and what kind of contribution you want to make in the long run. The essays prompt tend to be very similar every year. I think I've seen a few YouTube videos that have similar prompts to my essay last year. But what sets you apart is how you bring in and tell your story, your passion, identity, and experience. I'll attach a screenshot from my prompt last year. I hope you can think about it and prepare what you want to write in your essays. I'm not an expert by any means, but my biggest tip for writing your essays is when talking about your achievement and position, avoid the tendencies to just listing down everything that you have done in your previous years. I think it's a good idea for you to focus on the narrative or the story on what life experience has bring you to wanting to apply for the scholarship and become one of Yayasan Khazanah alumni and wanting to contribute to Malaysia. Pick 1 or 2 memorable challenges in your life, the thing that you have done, and then elaborate further. So how did that specific experience impact you? What did you learn from that hardship? Based on that experience, how do you want to grow further? And also connect it to your goals for your master's or PhD application. Another important thing is, if you don't know, Yayasan Khazanah has a very distinct slogan, which is the 3P. So purpose, people, trait, and personal traits. When writing your essays, always think about these three P's. Does this essay show that you have purpose, you have personal traits, and also people traits? And for the second essay, I recommend you to propose a concrete step-by-step actions that you can take during your studies of after your postgraduate studies, and avoid being too generic with your goals. So using ChatGPT to generate an essay for you, I don't think it's a very good idea because ChatGPT don't know who you are and it can propose a very generic answers. Being as rich as possible using the background of your studies, the industry that you are in, and proposing a concrete step-by-step solution of what you can do to the betterment of Malaysia, I think will differentiate you more than other candidates. Now, those are all the intros about the application process. Let's move on to stage 1 application. On 22nd of March 2024, just one day after the application date closed, I was notified that I am shortlisted and have a few days to prepare for stage 1 online assessment, which is dated on 25th and 22nd of March. So the test was a logics numerical advanced and also logics verbal advanced. So the test is handled online, so you can do it at the comfort of your own home. The link for your test will also be given through your email address. Okay, so initially, I thought that it would be a general IQ test that we have done before during high school or for fun for online quizzes, where there is a pattern recognizing diagram where you have to pick and choose which is the right continuous pattern after a series of photos. But it's actually really a math test that includes bar chart, math assessment, calculation, projection, and logic's verbal test is actually very similar to IELTS reading test, where they will give you a short paragraph and you will have to answer an objective question based on the paragraph. If I still remember correctly, there are a total of 20 questions for the numerical test and also 20 questions for the verbal test and 30 minutes to answer each category. The assessment will be done through a proper Yayasan Khazanah website, and there are going to be a break room where they lay down all of the rules and time given for each test. So both verbal and numerical tests will not be back to back. I was given 2 days to finish the test. Because it has been quite a long time since I took SPM, and studying architecture does not really involve these sorts of math and chart analysis, I did have to go back to basic and watch a lot of YouTube video tutorials on how to answer these sorts of questions quickly. So if you are in the same boat as me, it's okay, we can all learn and prepare for the assessment. Do not give up. If you check online, there is also a few test questions that is quite similar format to the real test. But I think the difficulty level for this mock exam is a bit toned down compared to the real test. Maybe the time factor also add a bit more stress during the real examination. That's why I think it's a bit more difficult. I'll try to put all of the links that I've used during my preparation in the description before. For stage 1, the biggest challenges that I face is finishing all of the questions on time. If you are used to taking these sorts of tests, I believe you can finish all of the questions. But a lot of us postgraduate students who, after talking to each other, actually did not finish all of the question and still passed through stage 2. So maybe there's hope for all of you. Don't be too sad if you didn't finish all of the question. And second challenges that I face is taking notes and highlighting the data that you receive. As the test is presented on screen, there's a lot of numbers on the screen itself, and it can get very confusing very quickly trying to put all of the numbers in your calculators, and you have to make sure that you're not pushing the wrong numbers, not reading the wrong part of the chart while reading all of the relevant data. And lastly, one of my regret preparing for stage 1 is I did diverge my focus on too many different variations of IQ tests. That is because at that time I didn't know which format they are going to present to me. So looking back, with the limited time that I have, I would have definitely focused more on the right kind of question, which is chart-based mathematics question and also reading test properly. Now, after the mind-boggling stage 1, not long after, on 28th of March 2024, I received an update of me passing through stage 2, and my deadline this time is until 30th of March 2024. This stage is still conducted online and is divided into 3 categories of tests. The first one is Big 5 personality test, second is Khazanah moral reasoning test, and thirdly is general personality test. Honestly, for me, it's quite tricky to give specific tips for this stage because it's designed to assess who you are rather than what you know. However, here is my review and some tips that might help you. First is for Big 5 personality test. This test evaluates 5 different key traits that people usually call as OCEAN. So it's an acronym for openness, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. These 5 traits actually define your personality, strengths, and tendencies. I watched a few YouTube videos for tips on tackling personality tests, and the conclusion that I've gathered from watching a bunch of blogs and YouTube videos is answer honestly, but strategize based on the role and position that you are applying for. For example, if you're applying for a managerial role, understand the traits that are crucial for a manager. For example, decision making, leadership, and being team oriented. If you're applying for a technical role, on the other hand, you can focus more on traits like self-learning skill, innovative problem solving, and things that fits being in a technical role. For this scholarship application, since I knew that they are looking for candidates with the potential for corporate roles or the ability to thrive in a highly collaborative environment, I tried to answer in a balanced manner across all aspects. For example, traits like being aggressive should be present but not too dominant to intimidate others. And being agreeable is also important for teamwork but not too much that you will appear a bit too passive in a team building environment. If you understand the 5 different traits that they assess, you might be able to detect which criteria they are asking for while answering their question. At the same time, I still answered truthfully. For example, if the question asks on a scale of 1 to 5, do you prefer to work alone or working in group? I will answer truthfully that I lean more towards working alone. That's because that's just the reality of my nature. Not everyone is built the same, and being an introvert has its own advantage, just like being an extrovert do. The second part is Khazanah moral reasoning test. This one is very interesting because it really challenged how I think in a real life situation. The test is a scenario based that you are presented in a workplace or a university conflict, and as the respondent or you yourself, you need to decide what action that you are going to take and justify your decision. Then you will rank based on the option of answers given, which one is the closest to your values and which one is the furthest from your values. So there's a 1 most likely and the 5 least likely. So here's an example of a question that I vaguely remember, very vaguely. For example, you're a research assistant at a university. Your supervisor published a paper based on your work but doesn't credit you as the main contributor. After thinking for a while, you decided to report the supervisor for misconduct, and what is your reasoning for your decision? First option of answer, maybe you feel betrayed and your supervisor deserves punishment. Secondly, this misconduct might happen again and it will harm others in the future. Thirdly is you work hard for this article and your efforts deserve recognition, and there's a few more answers. So you have to number it from most likely to least likely reasoning why you make a certain decision. So again, I didn't have a definitive tips on how to score these sorts of assessment, but here is what I think while finishing up this test is I try to focus on the impact of my action on others rather than focusing on personal interest or revenge, and I also prioritize values like integrity, fairness, and long-term consequences for the organization or the community. The answers will reflect your broader ethical consideration or your broader ethical values that Yayasan Khazanah are looking for. So if you think about it, if you know that Yayasan Khazanah are looking for future leaders who are thinking on contributing to the development of Malaysia, that kind of person, what will they do in those difficult situations? So you have to put yourself in the kind of person that Yayasan Khazanah are looking for. And the third one is general personality test. Among all of the tests, this one is the one that is most straightforward, and if you have taken psychometric tests in high school or elsewhere before, you'll be super familiar with this. There's a lot of questions, I think around 100 to 200 questions, and you have to answer all of the questions within 20 minutes. So there's really no time for you to overthink the question itself. So some of the example question is like, I enjoy meeting new people, I rarely tell When under pressure, I often feel nervous about the future and I like to try new foods. So each of these statements, you have to rate between 1 to 5, where 1 is not true at all and 5 is highly likely or highly true. So a bit of caveat, although this sounds simple, is this test actually tracks your consistency and honesty. For some questions may be repeated twice. For example, I am an angry person on the 25th question and also 185. So they can check whether your answers is contradicting, inconsistent or not, which can also raise a red flag. So be consistent and honest while answering this question. You don't have to think too much about it. Trust me. Okay, now you've passed stage 2 and you are moving on to stage 3. Congratulations. So I get my result feedback on the 3rd of April, and for stage 3, there are 2 different parts. One is an online interview and another one is an online assessment that we call an E3 assessment. Out of all of the stages, I think this one is the most fun for me because I like the task that was given to me a lot. So part 1 is an online interview where we call it as competency-based interview or CBI. You're going to be given a Zoom link and the time for your specific interview session. During my interview, there are 2 panels interviewing me and they are alternating in asking me questions. I believe that each question given to me has a purpose of assessing at least 1 out of the 12 competencies criteria. Okay, before we move forward further, what is competencies-based interview? According to Google, CBI is a structured interviewing method in which you are asked to share an example from the past experience describing your behavior on a specific situation. So why they are using CBI is because based on your past behavior, it can indicate your future performance in a new place or a new company. How do I actually prepare for the interview? First and foremost is knowing what are the different criteria that is assessed during the interview itself. There are different opinions out there, but here are some of the criteria or points that is assessed in this interview, which is teamwork, decision-making skills, communication skills, problem-solving skills, leadership capabilities, time management skills, flexibility, creativity, integrity, and trustworthiness. Understanding the description for each criteria will help you to find an answer and elaborate your point based on your previous experience. After understanding all of the criteria, secondly, you have to do is familiarize yourself with the STAR method to structure your answers. So what are the STAR methods? It's a very common strategy that people use in interviews. STAR is an acronym for situation, task, action, and result. I would recommend for you to answer 30% of your time explaining about the situation and task, and 70% is to elaborate on what action that you have done and what result you have seen based on your action and efforts that you have put in. Like anything else in the world, practice is the most important to prepare for the CBI interview. Based on all of the criteria that you have identified, you can make a library of situation or past experience that you can use to elaborate using the STAR methods. It's like during SPM when you are preparing for an essay exams, right? You are writing different prompts for essays that you can recycle and reuse again for similar essay prompt in the future or on the real exam. So it's the same with CBI interview. Try to generate a few answer options that you can tackle multiple assessment points. So different criteria like tenacity, hardworking, dealing with challenge. Same situation can be reused all over again to answer different assessment points. What I wish I could do looking back is first, try to speak slower and more organized during the interview and spend less time elaborating the situation and spend more time actually elaborating on my solutions and results. I would say, I guess being in architecture industry, I have the tendencies to explain some of the technical terms in my situation and I yap too much about the situation, making it longer for me to arrive to my solutions, actions and results. At the end of the day, is your action and the result of your action is the most important part on this interview. How proactive you are in providing solution, helping your colleagues to improve, or maybe dealing with people in higher positions than you. The CBI interview is actually very common methods used for consulting or management firm to hire a new recruits. So I think you can easily find a lot of information about this topic. And moving on to the second part of stage 3 assessment, which is the E-Tray assessment, which will also be conducted virtually. So first and foremost, what are E-Tray assessment? E-Tray tests are primarily designed to test your ability to manage real-world tasks efficiently under pressure. So E-Tray assessment are often used in roles that involve managing emails and other tasks in a professional setting. For example, graduate programs, management role, and consulting positions. I think this stage is super interesting because the assessment really assess how I think and operates in a corporate environment. What is the correct etiquettes in dealing with clients, people in higher position than us. So it's very different from what I'm used to. I'll be honest, I couldn't talk a lot about the details of the assessment because there's a confidentiality clause before I answer the exam. But I'll just try to give you a rough idea on how the assessment is handled. For the first task, it's an online assessment. It's a situation where you are kind of the new hire of a corporate company, and there is a certain launch that is going to happen in a few months ahead. So you are the person in charge managing the launch itself, and there's a lot of decision that you have to do. So remember that this test is a time based. So you have to answer all of the questions within a certain period of time. I could not talk too detailed about the projects that you are handling, but here's some tips that I have for you. First and foremost is you'll be given a chart on the structure of the company at the beginning of your test. Understand and always check in whether the person you'll be dealing with or you'll be emailing is in higher position or in lower position than you. Those are super important. Secondly, different roles or position in a company has a different responsibility. Know where and when to delegate the task to the right person. So some tasks or email that come into your inbox, you have to do it yourself because that is your responsibility. However, some tasks, because there are time constraints, right, like working in a company, so sometimes you have to learn when to delegate those tasks to your colleagues or your teams. And thirdly is always think on the longer term impact of your decision when making anything to the overall company and your team. Some answer options may look like it's the best solution on the short term because it's just easier, but it has a detrimental impact on the long-term relationship with maybe your co-workers, long-term clients, and teams. So always be mindful when selecting your move. It's like playing chess in a virtual corporate environment. Super fun. So for the second part of the assessment process, you as the project manager are given the task to do the hiring process. So of course, there's some companies' criteria in terms of salaries, budget, what kind of background, and you have to make the decision in 20 minutes and generate an email stating which candidate you are choosing and the right justification. And the last E3 task is you have to make a slogan for the events in 15 minutes or so. So as the project manager, you are given the chance to propose a suitable slogan for the event that you have been working on for so long. So you have to generate a short email proposing your tagline and your justification for the tagline itself. I think that for these two last assessment, it's super easy if you have working experience in a firm or a corporate environment. Generating a proper and professional email in a short amount of time while thinking all of the justification for your reasoning and the decision that you have made. So that's why working experience can help you a lot before starting and applying for the Yayasan Khazanah Global Scholarship. I'm not sure about the undergrad assessment. I think it would be too difficult if you are asking these sorts of questions to fresh graduates, so I couldn't really represent what undergrad assessment will look like. At the end of the day, just like stage 2 assessment process, I don't think there is a way for me to tell you which one is the right decision, as the reasoning and preferred answer for each test question that I do has a multifaceted reasoning behind it. So the only advice that I can give is whenever you are making a decision, always think on which party is going to benefit. Is it just for the higher ups, just for the clients, or it can also benefit your teams and the projection of your companies moving forward. Now, for the stage 4 interview, I received an email on the 20th of April 2024. This time is an interview with the YK management itself. So there's a bunch of scholarship managers who are managing this scholarship program. So this is also the first time face-to-face interview compared to all of the online assessment that we have done for stage 1 until stage 3. Since this is also the first time we're going face-to-face, you will also have the chance to meet other candidates who have been working on up to this stage. So be prepared to connect and network with the people around you. So you may get a lot of insight from people with different background. I find it a lot of fun because I always surrounded by architecture students, but this is the first time I met people in literature background, in science background, people who have been working for a very long time. So I get to learn a lot of insights from them also. Based on my experience and stories from others, the interview for this stage can get super short and super compact. So most of us actually spend 15 minutes to 20 minutes for each session. In the interview room, there is a few people, up to 4 or 5 if I'm not mistaken, but there will only be one person who are interviewing and talking to you. At the beginning, you'll be introduced to the interviewer, and it's usually the Yayasan Khazanah manager, because they are the person who are going to manage you throughout the scholarship duration. During the interview, because I'm an architecture student, I did bring my architecture portfolio that consists of my best design work and also my architecture competition, so they have something to engage with when I'm presenting myself. To sum up stage 4 interview compared to stage 5, I think stage 4 question is you can find a very common interview question. For example, tell me about yourself. Why do you choose a certain university? Why do you want to pursue your master's or your PhD? What is your long-term goals for Malaysia? And all of those common questions. And this is also why I said what you write in your essays is actually super important, because if you are able to connect your points and your aspiration to what you write at the beginning of your application, it can be a huge mark for you to show your passion and consistency. Looking back, I think stage 4 is like the last filtration process before some of us get to meet the boards of director. So it's like the initial filter to ensure that the candidates are mature enough to meet their boards of director, which has a higher stakes and more difficult question. If you prepare yourself based on the common interview question that you can find online, you will have a solid ground in answering any question that are given to you on stage 4. This is different for stage 5, which is the interview with the boards of director of Yayasan Khazanah itself. On the 3rd of May 2024, I did receive an email that I passed the 4th stage interview, and my last interview is on the 6th of May 2024. This is the last stage after 2 months of intense assessment process, and I actually think this is the most difficult for me, and I'll tell you why later. Quite similar to stage 4 interview, it's also done face-to-face at the same building at Yayasan Khazanah building in Shah Alam. This time, I did reread my essays a lot and try to develop my thinking process, my goals and aspiration, because these are some of the questions that I couldn't answer during stage 4 interview. I didn't know how I actually passed stage 4. During my interview, there are 2 panels in the room with me. One is the Board of Trustees itself, and another one is the scholarship manager who are managing this specific scholarship program. So I'm under Yayasan Khazanah Global, so the scholarship manager for this scholarship program will be inside the room. The main difference between stage 4 and stage 5 is stage 5, they don't ask you about tell me about yourself, the basic question. All of those questions has been done in stage 4. In stage 5, they absolutely go in depth in your long-term goals, your ideals, why I choose those specific universities, and why do I want to pursue your master's or PhD under Yayasan Khazanah. So everything that you have written inside your essays, those will be the point of discussion. So you really have to know what you are talking about. This interview is also usually longer than a stage 4 interview. So stage 5 usually lasts 30 minutes, 40 minutes even. So they really go in depth to know who you are aside from just surface level question. And there's a few questions like, why do I choose Yayasan Khazanah scholarship other than other scholarship? Are you willing to work after your studies? So, and what are your ideas or your contribution in the general scheme of things? The reason why I said that this stage is the most difficult for me is because I couldn't answer the last question that was given to me. The Board of Trustees are kind of asking what are my ideal goals or really long-term idea that I want to achieve in the long run. So it's different between what I want to achieve in 5 years and 10 years. This is a question for an architect. What are like the design ideals I want to achieve? Personally, I'll be honest, I was quite speechless in answering this question because maybe at this age I've never think about those kind of things that far. I think those kind of ideals is achieved when I was 50 and I'm just in my mid-20s, I guess. That question actually did leave me speechless, I think for a few minutes during the interview, and at the end of the day I couldn't actually answer the question. So yeah, at that time I did try to justify and answer in other facets like what I want to achieve in my career. I did try to answer the question, but they still pushing on my top ideals as a designer or an architect. And at the end of the day, I said, I'm sorry, I couldn't answer the question right now. And thankfully, they accept it well. And they did give me some of the example of ideas in terms of materials innovation or ideas innovation in terms of housing ideas and all that. But it did leave me speechless because I've never not been able to answer any question before. And when I get out of the room, the only thing that I've been in my mind is I'm totally not getting this scholarship because I totally blew off the last question. Like I was speechless for a few minutes in the interview room and the interviewers are looking at me. So this is like a real thing that happened during my process. And yeah, I did cry at the end of the day after getting back to my room. I'm telling this story because if it happened to you, maybe don't give up yet and keep on praying and hoping because you have done your best for stage 1 until stage 5, paying for transport, doing all of your homework, and preparing for your interview, and it costs a lot of money to travel back and forth, right? If you are stuck in your interview, I think it's not a bad thing to ask, can I have a bit of time to think about it? Because that is what I've done. And I did try to find an answer for the question and I did not give up until the end. So if you're in the same situation as me, it's okay, cheer up because at the end of the day, I did get the scholarship. The interviewers are human too, so they can see that you are struggling. Maybe you're too young to think about the big goals and all of that. The good side of the interview experience is when I start my masters, I kept on thinking like, what do I want to achieve on the long term? So those questions by the Board of Trustees are stuck in my mind. What ideals do I want to achieve? What ideals do I want to achieve? What innovations I want to improve on? What can I contribute to the construction company in Malaysia, I guess? Now, that is all of my detailed experience going through all of the assessment process for Yayasan Khazanah Global Scholarship Program in 2024. One takeout that you can get from this is the selection process can get super stressful. I understand it. I've been there. I couldn't sleep properly for these 2 months because I kept checking my emails, waiting for updates. Do I pass the assessment or not? And after each stage, there might be some regrets on how you think you can do better, say better, express better. Maybe you talk too fast or you talk too slow or you think your points can be improved. But the best way, I would say, to have a peace of mind is letting go and tawakkal to God. So letting go and tawakkal to God is the best way to help you to have a clear mind after each stage. So you can actually move on with your life. I hope that you get great values from this. I did put a lot of effort and trying to make this video as informative and compact as possible. And this is for my fellow postgraduate friends who are trying to find a fully funded scholarship in Malaysia. Please share me your takeaways in the comment section and good luck in your future endeavors.